Behind many political stories lurks a hidden agenda. This disturbing movement is exposed by Cheryl Atkinson in her latest book. And as a journalist with more than 30 years' experience, she has the stories to back it up. The Smear. Why the title?
I think it encapsulates this trend that I talk about that's happening in Washington, D.C., but has an impact really all over the world.
In our one-on-one, the hard-hitting investigative journalist told me the ultimate goal is control.
There's an industry that is paid to go after and target journalists, whistleblowers, political figures, whatever it may be, and inundate our consciousness and the images we see to try to ruin, destroy, or smear the idea that they don't like or the person who's delivering it on behalf of paid corporate or political interests.
In her latest book, she pulls back the curtain on how sophisticated operatives work to establish storylines, manipulate journalists, and ultimately shape what you think.
I quote one of the smear artists himself. It kind of gave me chills when he said, "Everything you see is put there for a reason." He said it's like a movie, it's like a scene in a movie, that the images that you come across, whether it's what a comedian jokes about on a national program, whether it's social media, whether it's on the news, he says it's put there for a reason, often by somebody who paid a lot of money to put it there.
She points to this past election as a primary example of the smear machine operating at full speed.
There was the idea that maybe in the past conservatives have had the edge, but for 2016 going into that race, all seemed to agree Democrats had control of the messaging, particularly when it came to using the news media. To the extent conservatives try to control the news message, yes, they would like to just as much, but they don't have as much of a receptive ear in the news media, so they're not able to do it as effectively. And what you see in the book, I've used their own statistics from emails returned through FOIA requests or sometimes exposed by WikiLeaks. These groups say how they were able to influence the narrative. They name names. They talk about the news publications and networks that published the stories they wanted them to publish. I've even published emails between journalists and these interests that they're supposed to cover, showing what I call transactional journalism, which I think is ethically inappropriate, where they're making deals with the newsmakers to cover things a certain way.
So help me God.
Although Democrats may have been more effective, Republicans ultimately won. Atkinson says this could be because voters are becoming more media savvy.
Are people getting wise to these techniques? Are they seeing through some of the narratives? Because I think it's fair to say 90% of the news narrative was in one direction, and yet Donald Trump still managed to overcome what this huge machine had built against him, Democrats, Republicans, and the media, to become president.
Today, one reoccurring narrative is Russia. President Trump says that this Russian probe is a political witch hunt. You have James Comey, who admitted to leaking documents to spur on this special counsel. And then the special counsel is Robert Mueller, who's one of his friends. And then Robert Mueller goes and hires friends of the Clintons. Is President Trump onto something? Is this a political witch hunt?
Yes, he is onto something. President Trump is correct when he says that this is a witch hunt in some respect, based on the evidence to date and based on President Obama's own intel experts, who not only didn't see any evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians by their own account, but also by the account of all public information, Democrats and Republicans alike, who haven't seen the connection, and yet you've seen it dominate the news narrative. I call it like the Brady Bunch, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. You just hear Russia, Russia, Russia all the time. And there have been wildly incorrect reports from some formerly top, well-respected news outlets in the nation about all of this. And in some cases, they haven't even corrected or done mea culpas when what they reported has been found to be false. It's not that the Russia question doesn't deserve some investigation, but the coverage for it is so wildly disproportionate to the evidence at large.
Whether it's Russia coverage or any other story, Atkinson says to step back and ask questions. And when it comes to so-called experts, are fact-checkers really trustworthy?
I quote some surveys and research that's been done on this that found, indeed, the fact-checkers that hold themselves out to be independent, where you may turn to say, I really want the truth about this or that so I can go to a fact-checker, turns out they're not so independent in many cases. Take Snopes, for example. We found instances where they're very good at fact-checking some things, but have been co-opted by special interests on some topics where they've put out incorrect, misleading, biased, or even false information.
A big one to watch out for, she says, is a source many of us know well.
You look at Wikipedia, some people say for the facts, even though they know volunteer editors are at play, but they don't know the extent to which corporate interests and big PR firms pretend to be volunteer editors and have developed strong editing privileges to control the pages of certain topics and people so that they smear some people or protect others from having negative things published so that they're furthering certain ideas of paid interest that you don't know about.
If there's one thing Atkinson wants you to learn from her book, it's this.
Nearly every image that's put before them, in the words of the people who operate in this universe, is put before them for a reason by an interest that is often not disclosed. And that should make you question when you see themes and memes coming up on social media and common ideas expressed over and over again. That should make you question who's behind it, who wants me to think this way.
And what is their agenda? She says asking questions doesn't necessarily mean a story is false, but it's important to make sure you're getting the whole story and approaching almost every story you read with a healthy dose of skepticism. For CBN News, I'm Jenna Browder.